Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, and welcome to all the devotees online. Thank you very much for your attendance as we continue Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, Chapter 11, verses 36 to 39. We're completing this chapter, Lord Krishna's entrance into Dwarka. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Vada Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Prem Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sarva Shastra Piyusha Sarva Vedeka Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokai Triprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavato Prabhu Kali Dando Didaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshasha Rayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisance unto you. By reading you unattains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madeka Bandhu Mad Sangim Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Madananda Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer respectful obeisance to you. Sadhu Sadhu Tadahin Attini Chocha Taraka Hanuman Chakada Chinmam Premna Ritkatayo Spura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, who give us saintliness to the unsaintly, who have loved the very fallen. Please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest. Mahatma told, accompany me with the love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yotonvayadi Taratas Charte Subhigna Swara Tene Brahma Hidaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatrati Sargom Risha Damna Svena Sadani Rastakuakam Satyam Param Dhimaihi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primal cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by illusory representation of water seen in fire, land seen on water. Only because of him did the material universe is temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Prayanopayasha Sabhya Kalavasmin Yuge Jana Manda Subanda Madayo Manda Bhagyo Padartha. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, many but short lies, that quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Narayam Namaskritya Narachevam Narotamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance to the personality of God Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, and the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Savai Pumso Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktira Dokshje Ahitya Pratyata Yayatma Suprasiddhati. The supreme occupation dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental, unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayapchu Savaivāgyam Yanam Chayat Haitukam By rendering devotional service under the person of God, Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires cautious knowledge and detachment from the world. Vadanti tat tat pravidas tattam yat gnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman Paramatma Bhagavan. Shru Shru Shoshadadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great services done by such service, one gains 20 for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shranutam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Reddan Stoya Badrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and a benefactor, a truthful devotee, cleanses desire from material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtues when properly heard and chanted. Nastapaya Shubhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatutama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Ashtiki. By regular attendance in the classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. In loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are continuing Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna and welcome again. Let us recap Canto 1, Chapter 11, verses 30 to 35, last week's verses, what you found interesting, what caught your attention, what you thought of remembering. Please share any comments or feedback regarding last week's session in the chat. Any feedback? We covered few laws. Srila Prabhupada covered few laws in his purports. Those laws we should remember because they will impact us. Hemavati says, Srila Prabhupada said, raindrops are the gopis' tears of separation. Yes, wonderful. So anytime we see raindrops, especially the big ones, hitting our windscreen, our consciousness can be transferred to the spiritual dimension just through raindrops. So one of the laws that Srila Prabhupada covered was the law of liquidation. And Prabhupada makes it very clear that the materialists, they may acquire, they may accumulate, they may build civilizations that have great assets, but the law of liquidation is that eventually it'll crumble, eventually be taken away. So that's one of the laws that is enforced. Knowing that we would not just accumulate wealth for sense gratification, because we would understand the temporary nature of that, even though it may be few years, 50 years, 100 years, even 1,000 years, even if it's the lifespan of Lord Brahma, still it is of a temporary nature. Krishna had 16,108 wives, so he is the supreme personality of Godhead. Yes, having one wife, one husband, even that becomes a challenge for people, just to keep that relationship in harmony, alive and well. We find so many relationships end up in divorce. So just to maintain one relationship is a struggle. Maintaining 10, 20 is really an impossible task. Having 1,000, having 16,000 means only the Supreme Personality of Godhead can do that. All right, let us continue with today's verses. So we are completing the last section, 36 to 39, Transcendental Character of the Supreme Lord. These sets of verses are focusing on the identity of Krishna and reinforcing who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, so that we would never make the mistake of bringing Krishna to a mundane platform or equating Krishna to be like people in this world. So therefore, this section is brought here to illustrate and present Krishna's supreme position. Text 36. Udama Bhava Vishunamalaval Guhasham Vridavo Kanihato Madanopi Yasam Samuya Chapam Ajahat Pramodata Datamastam Yashendriyam Vimati Tum Kuhakair Nasheku. Although the queen's beautiful smiles and furtive glances were all spotless and exciting, and although they could conquer Cupid himself by making him give up his bow in frustration, and although even the tolerant Shiva could fall victim to them, still, despite all their magical feats and attractions, they could not agitate the senses of the Lord. So naturally, when people look at Krishna with his queens, then they would naturally, if they're envious and looking from a mundane perspective, they would think that this is a mundane relationship. And here we see that the queens, they had extraordinary beauty. They were not ordinary, mundane females. They were expansions of Lakshmi Devi, expansions of Radhavani, the internal potency. So, no doubt, exquisitely beautiful. And they had all the features to even defeat Cupid. So Srila Prabhupada is going to expand this verse in relation to Krishna being completely undisturbed and sober. The path of salvation, or the path going back to Godhead, always forbids the association of women. And the complete Sanatana Dharma or Varnashram Dharma scheme forbids or restricts association with women. How then can one be accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is addicted to more than 16,000 wives? So Prabhupada is now presenting a question which generally people from those who don't accept Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead would present, and variations of such questions. This question may be relevantly raised by inquisitive persons really anxious to know about the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. And to answer such questions, the sages at Naimisharanya have discussed the transcendental character of the Lord in this and in the following verses. It is clear herein that the feminine attractive features which can conquer Cupid or even the supermost tolerant Lord Shiva could not conquer the senses of the Lord. Cupid's business is to invoke mundane lust. The whole universe is moving, being agitated by Cupid's arrows. The activities of the world are being carried on by the central attraction of male and female. A male is searching after a mate to his liking, and the female is looking after a suitable male. That is the way of the material stimulus. And as soon as a male is combined with a female, the material bondage of the living being is at once tightly interlocked by sex relation. And as a result of this, both the males and females' attraction for sweet home, motherland, bodily offspring, society, and friendship, and accumulation of wealth becomes the illusory field of activities. And thus a false but indefatigable attraction for the temporary material existence, which is full of miseries, is manifest. Those who are therefore on the path of salvation for going back to Godhead are especially advised by all spiritual instructions to become free from such paraphernalia of material attraction. And that is possible only by the association of the devotees of the Lord, who are called the Mahatmas. So Prabhupada's now presenting the argument and establishing the fact that Krishna is never disturbed, his senses are never disturbed. And Prabhupada's bring that, establishing this by presenting the fact that in spiritual life, the culture of separating male and female is there, if one wants to advance. And those who are interested in spiritual life, they would keep that separation. And if they keep that separation with the focus of transcending the bodily relations, they eventually become perfect. So if that is the process for those that need to go back to the spiritual world, to have that separation, then what to talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead? How can he, who's in the spiritual world, who's transcendental, who's completely pure, come to the level of mundane attraction, which those who go back to the spiritual world are actually on the path of keeping distant away from such entanglement. So Prabhupada's using that angle, that if the devotees are able to transcend the relationships, then what to talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Cupid throws his arrows upon the living beings to make them mad after the opposite sex, whether the party is actually beautiful or not. Cupid's provocations are going on even amongst beastly societies who are all ugly looking in the estimation of civilized nations. Thus, Cupid's influence is exerted even amongst the ugliest forms, and what to speak of the most perfect beauties. Lord Shiva, who is considered to be the most tolerant, was also struck by Cupid's arrows because he also became mad after the Mohini incarnation of the Lord and acknowledged himself to be defeated. Cupid, however, was himself captivated by the grave and exciting dealings of the goddesses of fortune, and he voluntarily gave up his bow and arrow in the spirit of frustration. Such was the beauty and attraction of the beings of Lord Krishna. Yet, they could not disturb the transcendental senses of the Lord. This is because the Lord is all perfect Atmarama, or self-sufficient. He does not require anyone's extraneous help for his personal satisfaction. Therefore, the queens could not satisfy the Lord by their feminine attraction, but they satisfied him by their sincere affection and service. So this is the relationship. It's not a mundane relationship in which generally it's all about attraction. It's all about sensuous attraction. It's all about giving pleasure to the senses. The relationship between the queens of Dwarka, who are exquisitely beautiful, and Krishna is not on that relationship. Therefore, Prabhupada says that the queens could not satisfy the Lord by their feminine attractiveness. So they could not agitate him on that level, but they satisfied him by their sincere affection and service. Because of them loving Krishna and having love for Krishna, Krishna reciprocated with their love as a husband. This is Krishna's position as Rasaraj. He is able to perfectly reciprocate according to the devotee's desire, free from all mundane propensities and activities. Only by unalloyed transcendental loving service could they satisfy the Lord. And the Lord was pleased to treat them as wives in reciprocation. Thus, being satisfied by their unalloyed service only, the Lord reciprocated the service just like a devout husband. Otherwise, he had no business becoming the husband of so many wives. He is the husband of everyone, but to one who accepts him as such, he reciprocates. This unalloyed affection for the Lord is never to be compared to mundane lust. It is purely transcendental, and the grave dealings which the queens displayed in natural feminine ways were also transcendental, because the feelings were expressed out of transcendental ecstasy. It is already explained in the previous verses that the Lord appeared like a mundane husband, but factually his relation with his wives was transcendental, pure, and unconditioned by the modes of material nature. So this fact we must appreciate and understand completely. Krishna's relationship with the gopis, with the queens of Dwarka, may externally perceive as sensuous activities that go on in this material world, but they are completely and totally transcendental. They have absolutely nothing to do with the material creation or material relationships. We find here the example of Haridas Thakur. Even when Maya Devi, even when the prostitute tried to disturb the senses of Haridas Thakur, he was not disturbed at all. In fact, by his purity, he influenced the prostitute. So, if Haridas Thakur could not be disturbed by Maya herself, then what to talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So this fact we have to appreciate and understand. If we are not convinced of this fact, then when we enter into Krishna's pastimes, we will commit offenses, thinking Krishna is having mundane exchanges and mundane relationships. We find that is why Srila Prabhupada, even Srijat Mahaprabhu warned, Acharyas have warned, not to delve into the intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna, even with the gopis. Why? Because by nature, we see the world through our perspective. Atmavan manyata jagat. We see the world through our perspective. We perceive the world through the taints and the layers of conditioning that we have. And because of that, when we see Krishna's relationships with the queens of Dwarka or the gopis, we immediately think, yes, just like the relationships that we have in this world. And that is extremely dangerous. Therefore, we find that these verses are very, very appropriate, laying the foundation. Now, we should be already convinced that Krishna's relationship with the queens of Dwarka has nothing to do with mundane relationships, has nothing to do with the modes of material nature. Why? Because we already heard how Srila Vyasadeva had perfect realizations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when Srila Vyasadeva saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he saw Krishna and he saw Maya Devi. And where was Maya Devi? She was separated from Krishna. She was at a distant place, or she was at a distance away from Krishna, because Krishna never comes in contact with the material energy. Material energy is Krishna's separated energy. Krishna never ever comes in contact with Maya Devi. If he wants to use Maya Devi, he will do that via an agency, a personality like Lord Shiva. But Krishna himself never ever contacts the material energy. Therefore, we should understand that anything and everything related to Krishna is not a product, not tinged, not associated with the material energy. It is completely transcendental. I'll just like to share a little about Cupid, since Prabhupada spoke to quite a length on this topic of Cupid shooting his arrows. So Kamadev is represented as a young, handsome man who wields a bow and arrows. His bow is made of sugarcane, and his arrows are decorated with 5 kinds of fragrant flowers. The names of the 5 arrows of Kamadev are Lumbini, Tapini, Dravini, Marini, and Bodhini. And the 5 flowers are white lotus, Aravinda, Ashok tree flowers, Ashoka, mango tree flowers, Chuta, jasmine flowers, Navamalika, blue lotus flowers, Nilotphala. Kamadev or Cupid possesses 5 arrows with which he inflicts all conditioned soul, all conditioned living entities. So as soon as there is some attraction, Kamadev's business, his service is to facilitate that. His job is to make sure the male and female bondage goes on perpetually. Just like Suryadev, the sun god, his service is to make sure the sun rises and sets eternally, at least in terms of the creation. He can't say, today I'm tired, let me take a break. Has been busy, need a holiday. Nope, no holiday for the sun god. Day in, day out, every single day, he's on duty. So the demigods are very diligent in their service. And if a time comes when there's some disruption, Krishna intervenes, Lord Vishnu intervenes. So Kamadev's business is simply to create this shackle of sex life, the bondage in this material world. Otherwise, it's people know that coming together means challenges and responsibilities, but yet they go through it because they are facilitated, infatuated by Kamadev. According to Sripad Prabodhana Saraswati, in his commentary on the Gita Govinda, these arrows are, so here are the 5 types of arrows, going from the first, which is the lotus flower, to the blue lotus, and the intensity increases. So infatuation, agitation, heart burning, extreme dryness, and destruction. So just go through the explanation of each one of this. So the first arrow makes one infatuated. One identifies only the best qualities in the other person. One constantly thinks of the other, and if the opportunity permits, they talk with or meet each other. In this way, the infatuation is deepened. So we may have experience of this in the material world. People, glance at each other, and immediately, as soon as they glance at each other, Kamadev takes that opportunity and starts to shoot his first arrow. As soon as the first arrow is shot, immediately infatuation is there in the heart, and they want to speak, they want to be together with each other, they want to speak, talk with each other. Then, next arrow, Kamadev shoots the next arrow. When the next arrow pierces the heart, separation becomes unbearable. One's mind and senses are agitated. If opportunity permits, the couple increases their interaction until it covers the entire day. They derive mellow from each other's association, nectar to start with, then follow other things like children, household responsibilities, etc. So as soon as infatuation builds up, then the next arrow is shot. And nowadays it's like, being on WhatsApp the whole day, being on the phone whole day. You want to be with that person the whole day. And then naturally, you want to spend your life with the person. And then the extension of that, getting married, children, household responsibilities follow. So generally, those are the two arrows which are very prominent. Now it goes even further. But such a state does not last for long. As the third arrow pierces the heart, which begins to burn, the pain is almost intolerable. One's intelligence gets bewildered, and one acts like a madman. Often the relationship enters problematic phase, with frequent friction producing more heat. So if one does not become bound in relationships according to Dharma, according to Krishna consciousness, then all mundane relationships purely based on sense gratification will start to take this route, with the third arrow starting to burn each other's hearts. This starts to bring friction and problems into that relationship. And it doesn't end there. Cupid shoots his next arrow. The heat produces dryness. As the fourth arrow pierces, one enters the extreme state of pain, breakup, unwanted pregnancy, abortion, divorce, depression, stress, alcoholism, violence, ulcer, hair loss, etc. So this is how the ramification of breakup, because it started off as affection and infatuation, and that became poisoned. And now we have the reverse of that relationship. And finally, when the last arrow is shot, the blue lotus flower, finally Kamadev releases the fifth arrow, which just destroys the victim. Suicide, acid throwing, murder, etc. Death separates even the most intimate couples in this way. One suffers in this life and next, entering into ghostly species. So this is how Kamadev practically governs as a service, creates this cycle, vicious cycle. Those who are Krishna conscious are protected by this. Why? Because we understand that there are two types of relationships. One is Griha Medi, which is now described here, based on sense gratification, and the other is Grihastha, Ashram, a spiritual bond. So when couples come together without Krishna consciousness, that is destructive. When couples come together with Krishna consciousness, keeping Krishna in the center, then that relationship, it's not that it's going to be always blissful, but that relationship is described to be like a thorn that takes another thorn out. That thorn of lust, which plagues every conditioned soul, can be taken out with the proper application of Grihastha Ashram. And in this way, we transcend the level of sensuousness in relationships. Now the relationship is evolving to a more pure, a more, you could say, on a higher level of the mode of goodness, and then completely pure in terms of helping each other in serving Krishna. So that is the relationships that Srila Prabhupada encouraged and introduced in the society to help souls with the disease of infatuation, lust, but in a Krishna conscious way, be able to transcend. And those who follow those instructions, they rise above Cupid's arrows. So then they cannot even be infatuated by Cupid. And if they cannot be infatuated by Cupid, then what to talk about Krishna himself? There is absolutely no question that Krishna is infatuated by Cupid. At the same time, Prabhupada is warning that do not play with Cupid. Therefore, keep a healthy distance. And that healthy distance will keep you protected and safe. Because if you play with fire, you will get burnt. And Cupid's arrows, at least for conditioned souls, are invincible. King Kulashekar presents a very beautiful verse, and Prabhupada gives a nice purport. He says, "O Cupid, abandon your residence in my heart, which is now the home of Lord Mukunda's lotus feet. You have already been incinerated by Lord Shiva's fiery glance. So, why have you forgotten the power of Lord Murari's disc?" So very wonderful warning King Kulashekar is telling Kamadev, you got burnt by Lord Shiva's glance. Lord Krishna's disc, Sudarshan disc, is even more powerful. So beware, don't mess with me. I've got Lord Mukunda in my heart, not interested in anything else. Prabhupada in the purport says, this is a bold challenge to Cupid, who can usually subdue everyone, including aspiring transcendentalists. As Lord Kapila says to his mother, just try to understand the mighty strength of my Maya in the shape of a woman, who by her mere movements of her eyebrows can keep even the greatest conquerors of the world under her grip. Bhagavatam 3:31-38. A devotee can challenge Kamadev, Cupid, in such a festive way because devotees constantly meditate on Lord Krishna, who destroys Cupid's influence. Here, King Kulashekar is giving fair warning to Kamadev to leave the king's mind or risk destruction for a second time. The reference here is to an incident in which Kamadev tried to shoot his arrows at Lord Shiva to arouse lust in him. Lord Shiva retaliated by burning Kamadev to ashes with his glance. Kamadev should have learned his lesson from that incident. If not, King Kulashekar warns that Lord Krishna will have no trouble destroying Kamadev with his disc and freeing his devotee's mind of lust. Kamadev is also called Madan, a name that means one who attracts. But Lord Krishna is known as Madan Mohan, that bewilder of Cupid. In other words, Krishna is so transcendently attractive that anyone who absorbs his mind in him will not be troubled by sex desire. Furthermore, Lord Krishna's consort, Srimati Radhavani, is called Madan Mohan Mohini, because she all alone can captivate even Krishna. But then the end of the purport, Prabhupada continues, but the Bhaktas have discovered an infallible shelter from Cupid, absorption in the beauty of Krishna. One who is captivated by the beauty of Krishna is not victimized by lust. As Sri Yamunacharya sings, since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I've been enjoying ever new transcendental pleasure in that service, whenever I think of sex with a woman, my face at once turns from it, and I split at the thought. So we should be careful of Cupid. At the same time, the solution is be absorbed in Krishna's beauty, be absorbed in Krishna's glories. That way we will be protected and sheltered. Text 37. Tam ayam manyate loko ya sangam api sanginam atmo panyena manujam vyaprin vanam yato buddha. The common materialistic conditioned souls speculate that the Lord is one of them. Out of their ignorance, they think that the Lord is affected by matter, although he is unattached. The word a Buddha is significant here. Due to ignorance only, foolish mundane wranglers misunderstand the Supreme Lord and spread their foolish imaginations amongst innocent persons by propaganda. So foolish because of ignorance. They do not know Krishna's primal position. One time, Srila Prabhupada was walking, morning walk with his disciples, and there was some building that Prabhupada inquired. He pointed his cane and he asked the devotees, what is that? Prabhupada must have, wanted to know about a building, possibly to use it in Krishna's service. So Prabhupada pointed and said, what is that? So one devotee, he said, I don't know, Srila Prabhupada, I don't know, but I think. And as soon as he said, I don't know, but I think, Prabhupada immediately stopped him right there. And Prabhupada said, foolish and rascal. Foolish because you said you don't know. So that means you are foolish. And then on top of not knowing, you then started saying, I think, and that means rascal. Because how can you share information about something that you have no clue about? And this is how people, they want to talk about Krishna when they have absolutely no clue about Krishna. And they give their own concocted rascaldom views. The Supreme Lord Shri Krishna is the original primal personality of Godhead. And when he was personally present before the eyes of everyone, he displayed full-fledged divine potency in every field of activities. As we have already explained in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is completely independent to act however he likes. But all his actions are full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. That statement we should also ingrain in our consciousness. I will read it again. He is completely independent to act however he likes, but all his actions are full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. That means that nothing, no activity that Krishna engages in is plagued with misery, to cause suffering, to give distress, to harm, to be causing inconvenience of any sort to a conditioned soul or to a devotee. Whatever Krishna does is always beneficial and blissful for the devotee. We may perceive it coming through in different situations as something unfavorable or negative, but that is our conditioning. Krishna's nature is that he cannot do anything that will harm anyone else. It is always beneficial. always blissful. Only the foolish mundaners misunderstand him, unaware of his eternal form of knowledge and bliss, which is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. His different potencies work in a perfect plan of natural sequence, and doing everything by the agency of his different potencies, he remains eternally the supreme independent. When he descends on the material world by his causeless mercy to different living beings, he does so by his own potency. He is not subject to any condition of the material modes of nature, and he descends as he is originally. So when Krishna appears in this world, he appears on a transcendental plane within the material creation. He does not enter into Maya. When we enter into this world, we are fully controlled and embraced in the potency of the material nature. Krishna, when he appears in this world, but completely on the transcendental plane with his own potency. Krishna appears. This is the nature. Example is given. Prabhupada often gives example of the prison. When a prisoner comes into the prison, he's completely bound by the laws of the prison. But when the king comes with his assistants and ministers into the prison, just to see, maybe one prisoner did, performed some extraordinary act, of service, and to reciprocate with that extraordinary service, the king enters into the prison. He is not bound. He does not need to dress like the prisoner. He's not bound by the laws of the prison, by the rules of the prison. He's completely transcendental. In fact, all the gates open, everybody bows down to him. He's in the prison, but completely free from the rules, regulations, and stringent laws of the prison. So Krishna, when he enters into this material creation, is like that. The mental speculators misunderstand him as a supreme person, and they consider him impersonal, his impersonal features as inexplicable Brahman to be all. Such a conception is also a product of the conditioned life, because they cannot go beyond their own personal capacity. Therefore, one who considers the Lord on the level of one's limited potency is only a common man. Such a man cannot be convinced that his personality of God is always unaffected by the modes of material nature. He cannot understand that the sun is always unaffected by the infectious matter, by infectious matter. The mental speculators compare everything from the standpoint of experimental knowledge of their own selves. Thus, when the Lord is found to act like an ordinary person in matrimonial bondage, they consider him to be one of them, without considering that the Lord can at once marry 16,000 wives or more. Due to poor fund of knowledge, they accept one side of the picture while disbelieving the other. This means that due to ignorance only, they always think of Lord Krishna as like themselves and make their own conclusions, which are absurd and unauthentic from the version of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we should never make this mistake. And anyone that makes this mistake will never be able to enter into the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 38. Etad ishanam ishasya prakritisto pi tat gunai na yujyate sadat mastair yatha buddhis tad ashraya. This is the divinity of the personality of Godhead. He is not affected by the qualities of material nature, even though he is in contact with them. Similarly, devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord do not become influenced by material qualities. In the Vedas and Vedic literatures, so the Vedas are the Shruti, and the Vedic literatures, which are the Puranas, are called the Smriti. It is affirmed that in the divinity there is nothing material. He is transcendental, nirguna, only the supreme cogniscient. And this is where most people also misunderstand this word nirguna, which is mentioned very often in the Vedas and the Shrutis and the Smritis. But it does not mean no qualities. See, guna means qualities, nir means negation. So you get sagun and nirgun. Sagun means with qualities, nirgun means without qualities. So when there are statements in the Vedas that says the Supreme Lord is nirgun, Supreme Lord has no qualities, they immediately read that and take the meaning that the Lord has no qualities. And if the Lord has no qualities, means he's qualityless, means he's impersonal. Therefore, Brahman is impersonal. The Supreme is impersonal. This is how they come to that conclusion. Here, Prabhupada is giving the proper understanding of the word nirgun means transcendental, not material. That means no material qualities. So Krishna has no material qualities. Krishna has no material hands, legs, arms. Krishna has no material activities, no material pastimes. Because Krishna is transcendentally situated. And he has spiritual qualities, spiritual pastimes, spiritual features. This is the true understanding of Nirgun and Sagun. Hari, or the personality of Godhead, is the supreme transcendental person situated beyond the range of material affection. These statements are also confirmed even by Acharya Sankara. One may argue that his relation with the goddess of fortune may be transcendental, but what about his relationship with the Yadu dynasty, being born in that family, or his killing of the non-believers like Jarasan and other asuras directly in contact with the mode of material nature? Now Prabhupada is bringing another perspective. Okay, so Krishna is transcendental. Okay, we accept. But if we take Jarasan, who's a demon, he's on the mode of ignorance. So he's plagued by the modes of material nature. Now, if Krishna kills him, Krishna is in contact with somebody on the mode of material nature, on the lower modes, then does Krishna not get affected? So that's the question. The answer is that the divinity of the personality of Godhead is never in contact with the qualities of material nature in any circumstances. Actually, he is in contact with such qualities because he is the ultimate source of everything. Yet, he is above the action of such qualities. He is known, therefore, as Yogeshwar, or the master of mystic powers, or in other words, the all-powerful. Even his learned devotees are not affected by the influence of material modes. The great six Goswamis of Vrindavan all came from greatly rich and aristocratic families. But when they adopted the life of mendicants at Vrindavan, superficially they appeared to be in wretched conditions of life, but factually they were the richest of all its spiritual values. Such Mahabhagavats or first-grade devotees, although moving amongst men, are not contaminated by honor or insult, hunger or satisfaction, sleep or wakefulness, which are all resultant actions of the three modes of material nature. Similarly, some of them are engaged in worldly dealings, yet are unaffected. Unless these neutralities of life are there, one cannot be considered situated in transcendence. The divinity and his associates are on the same transcendental plane, and their glories are always sanctified by the action of Yoga Maya, or the internal potency of the Lord. The devotee of the Lord are always transcendental, even if they are sometimes found to have fallen in their behavior. The Lord emphatically declares in Bhagavad Gita 9:30 that even if an unalloyed devotee is found to be fallen due to previous material contamination, he is nevertheless to be accepted as fully transcendental because of his being engaged 100% in the devotional service of the Lord. The Lord protects him always because of his rendering service unto him, and the fallen conditions are to be considered accidental and temporary. They will vanish in no time. So it's very clear. The devotees who practice Krishna consciousness, they eventually transcend the modes of material nature, and they also are situated on the same transcendental platform as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even though they may be acting and interacting with people on the material plane, who are on the material plane, they themselves stay aloof. The example is given of the lotus flower. The lotus flower may be in muddy water, but it's never touched and contaminated by that muddy water. It's always aloof of the muddy water. So the modes of material nature never come in contact with those who are practicing, or at least the pure devotees of the Lord and the Supreme Lord himself, who are living their lives with the divine energy, spiritual energy. There is Mahamaya and Yogamaya. So in the spiritual world, everyone is enacting pastimes via the Yogamaya potency. In the material world, that Yogamaya potency manifests as Mahamaya, the material energy. And everyone in this material world is enacting their activities through the material energy. So when pure devotees come to this world, when the Lord comes to this world, then they come and enact still via the internal potency, Yogamaya, within this material creation. Text 39. Tamme nire bala mudda strainam chanu vratam raha apramana vido bhartu ishwaram matayo yatha. The simple and delicate women truly thought that Lord Shri Krishna, their beloved husband, followed them and was dominated by them. They were unaware of the extent of the glories of their husband, as the atheists are unaware of him as the supreme controller. So Krishna, he's able to act or relate, not act really. He's able to relate perfectly as a husband, as a son, as a lover, as a servant, in every situation. And here we see Krishna enacting the role, relating with the residents, with the queens of Dwarka perfectly, that even they could not completely appreciate and understand Krishna's transcendental position, because he was acting perfectly in that role and reciprocating perfectly in that role as a husband. They would say, for example, when Satyabhama said, I want the Parijata flower from the heavenly planets. Krishna said, okay, I'll go get it. So in this way, he reciprocated perfectly. Prabhupada in the purport says, even the transcendental wives of Lord Shri Krishna did not know completely the unfathomable glories of the Lord. This ignorance is not mundane, because there is some action of the internal potency of the Lord in the exchange of feelings between him and his eternal associates. The Lord exchanges transcendental relations in 5 ways: as proprietor, master, friend, son, and lover. So in Shantaras, the Lord is the proprietor. In Dasya, the Lord is the master. In Sakya, the Lord is a friend. In Vatsalya, the Lord is the son. And Madhurya, the Lord is the lover. And in each of these pastimes, he plays fully by the potency of Yogamaya, the internal potency. He plays exactly like an equal friend with the coward boys, or even with friends like Arjuna. So the point is, when Krishna is relating perfectly with his devotees, and the example can be given like Arjuna. So we find Arjuna was a friend to Krishna, and therefore he would not be speaking to Krishna like a devotee saying, oh, my Lord, Like find in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna showed Arjuna the universal form, this changed his relationship from friend to devotee. And he felt embarrassed. He started offering prayers. Please forgive me. I, was sitting with you on the same, bed. I was speaking to you like a friend. I was mocking with you, joking with you, eating with you. He felt this was not right because Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And then when Krishna reinstated that relationship of friend, which means equals, Arjuna can just tell, hey, Krishna, let's go. Come, buddy, let's go. Or we find when Krishna was Arjuna's charioteer, then Arjuna, when he's on the battlefield, he's not offering a prayer to the Supreme Lord, oh my Lord, oh Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything, please, can you turn right? And then he offers another prayer, can you turn left? No, he just says, Krishna, left, right, hey, straight, because they're friends. So Krishna has perfect relationships in all these different rasas. He plays exactly like a son in the presence of Yashoda Mata. He plays exactly like a lover in the presence of the coward damsels. And he plays exactly like a husband in the presence of the queens of Dwarka. Such devotees of the Lord never think of the Lord as a supreme, but they think of him exactly as a common friend, a pet son, or a lover, or a husband, much dearer to heart and soul. That is the relation between the Lord and his transcendental devotees, who acts as his associates in the spiritual sky, where there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets. When the Lord descends, he does so along with his entourage to display a complete picture of the transcendental world, where pure love and devotion of the Lord prevails without any mundane tinge of lording it over the creation of the Lord. Such devotees of the Lord are all liberated souls, perfect representations of the marginal or internal potency in complete negation of the influence of the external potency. The wives of Lord Krishna were made to forget the immeasurable glories of the Lord by the internal potency, so that they might not be any flaw of exchange, and they took it for granted that the Lord was a hand-packed husband, always following them in lowly places. In other words, even the personal associates of the Lord do not know him perfectly well. So what do the theists write? What do the theses writers or mental speculators know about the transcendental glories of the Lord? So if the pure devotees who are under the internal potency do not know the complete glory of the Supreme Lord, because they are covered by the internal potency to exchange perfectly with the Lord, what to talk about those who are just thesis writers? They just write some mental speculation, some thesis. Oh, this is the Supreme, this is God. They will not be able to appreciate, understand, and know the glory of the Supreme Lord. Yet, we who are not thesis writers, who are not philosophers, are educated by Srila Prabhupada in the perfect understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is how we are able to build our proper understanding of Krishna with the proper foundation that will slowly unfold and open into Krishna's eternal pastimes. The mental speculators present different theses as to his becoming the cause of creation, the ingredients of creation, or the material and efficient causes of creation. But all this is but partial knowledge about the Lord. Factually, they are as ignorant as the common man. So we can see Prabhupada is not impressed by great philosophers and thesis writers. For Prabhupada, it's practically a waste of time. Total waste of time. Whereas you find even a new bhakta who comes to Krishna consciousness and who reads Prabhupada's books, he's able to get the highest wisdom simply through Prabhupada's teachings. The Lord can be known by the mercy of the Lord only and by no other means. But since the dealings of the Lord with his wives are based on pure transcendental love and devotion, the wives are all on the transcendental plane without material contamination. So even though they don't know the Lord completely and they still think he's a handbag husband, still their relationship is totally transcendental. Why? Because it is based on transcendental, pure transcendental love and devotion. And Krishna is reciprocating with that pure love and devotion. It had nothing to do. Krishna had nothing to do with these 16,108 queens because they wanted some lusty exchange. No, it was simply out of their love and devotion that Krishna reciprocated. Because Krishna is Achyuta. Krishna never fails in reciprocating with those who love him. And therefore, if we aspire to serve the Lord, we aspire to increase our pure devotion to Krishna, we should have firm faith that Krishna will reciprocate with that love and devotion in the most perfect way, free from all mundane material contamination. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Krishna's Entrance into Dwarka. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Next week, we will continue with a new chapter, entering into the pastimes of Maharaj Parikshit, chapter 12, verses 1 to 6. Are there any questions or comments? There were a few comments that were posted. I'll just read that. If you have any questions, please post that. Bhavana Prabhu says, the Lord is Vaibhava. He's also known as Yogeshwar, hence manifestation in 16,100 planetary expansions. Nonetheless, says Sri Krishna is like the wind which causes friction. The discontented atheists fight and get rid of themselves in this world. Yes. Bhavana Prabhu says, manifestation of the feature of his internal potency. He can expand himself in so many forms of spiritual identity as he desires, even though he is one without a second. These manifold expansions of the Supreme Lord are manifested as plenary and separated portions. It is confirmed in the Shruti mantra that Absolute is one alone. He becomes many as soon as he desires. Separated portions are representations of his energies. Plenary portions are manifestations of his personality. Thus, the personality of God had manifested in 16,008 plenary expansions and simultaneously entered each and every one of these palaces of the queens. Vaibhava. The Lord is Vaibhava. Thus the potency and the potent and the potencies are perpetually exchanging transcendental pleasures, known as pastimes of the Lord. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for this clarity on the number of wives. If the Lord is of the Lord, it will not ever go wrong. I want to take as though I understand its transcendental nature. It's so enlivening that one wishes for such higher relations in this lifetime and ultimately transcendental with the Lord. Yes, and this is what Prabhupada is opening. Prabhupada is giving us a chance or an opportunity that comes, or rather I would say an opportunity that never comes. We've been in this material clay creation since time immemorial. So for us to come in contact with such wisdom, such association as Srila Prabhupada and his associates, the books that he presented, the knowledge, is extremely rare. It's our good fortune. So when we appreciate and understand that, we can truly understand our good fortune and take advantage of that good fortune. Do not miss the benefit that we can derive from such good fortune. Otherwise, it will be even the greatest misfortune, more misfortune, more, what would be the word? More unfortunate than if we didn't meet Srila Prabhupada. If we didn't meet Srila Prabhupada, it's unfortunate. But by meeting him and not taking advantage, that's even more unfortunate. Terribly unfortunate. So we don't want to be in that boat. And therefore, we should take full advantage. Nalini Kanta says, absolutely beautiful class by Srila Prabhupada's fantastic and brilliant purport. So nice to hear about Krishna and these wonderful verses. Thank you, Prabhu, for explaining so nicely. Srimad Bhagavatam is a real medicine for us. Hare Krishna, yes. Truly the real medicine for the material disease. We simply have to associate, absorb, and try to solidify this in our consciousness so that we can practice Krishna consciousness with that foundation. See, the knowledge, like in Bhagavad Gita, we also covered, there are two tracks to advance. One is knowledge, the track of knowledge that takes us higher and higher, and the other is detachment that takes us higher and higher. So therefore, the more knowledge, Krishna conscious knowledge we build upon and solidify and apply and practice our Krishna consciousness on that foundation, the higher we evolve in our Krishna consciousness. Mother Les says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for Krishna Kanta. Is Cupid one of the expansions of Sri Krishna, or is he the feminine version of Maya, i.e. external energy of the Lord? And how is Cupid everywhere at once shooting his arrows? So Cupid is a demigod. So the demigods are empowered. And sometimes I'll have to look at and research whether Cupid is an expansion of a potency of Krishna. Sometimes that is there. Certain demigods are certain potencies of Krishna, so I'll have to look at that. But generally, the demigods are also souls, jivas like us, like Brahma. Well, Brahma is jiva tattva. So everyone within this material creation, including the demigods, right up to Lord Brahma, are jiva tattva, which means they are souls like you and me. But the difference is that those jivas who are higher up in the creation are of a higher nature in terms of the modes of material nature. Those on Earth planet are generally plagued by the mode of passion and ignorance. Those lower down are plagued by low modes. Those higher up are plagued by the mode of goodness and higher. So all the demigods are situated in service to the Lord. They are servants of the Lord and administrators as administrators. So Kamadev is also an administrator serving in the department of love, and his service is to, as we described, cause infatuation and different levels and intensities of that in couples. How can Cupid be everywhere? Krishna gives him the ability. If you look at the sun, Surya Dev has the potency to be everywhere. If you're in America, you'll say the sun is there above my head. You're in India, or is above my head. So Indra also is everywhere. He can manage rain across the whole universe, right? So they have that ability. They have that potency. They're not limited by geographic considerations like us. They have greater abilities and potencies to see, to be able to enact and conduct this service. Because they are given that service, Krishna empowers them to perform that service. So this is how Krishna is able to empower the servants, the demigods, to perform their respective service Krishna is a perfect leader. Krishna will give you a post, and he'll also set you up for success. He'll give you all the facilities and the abilities to perform that service nicely. Consider, Lord Brahma needs to engineer the creation. So Krishna knows that. Therefore, Krishna empowers him with 4 heads. For this material universe that we in, it's 4 billion miles. So Krishna says, okay, this Brahma needs 4 heads because that is the capacity that he needs to manage his service. In other universes, it's 10 billion miles. Therefore, 10 heads Brahma, 10 head Brahma. Krishna gives perfect facility and guidance and empowerment for his servants. So this is how Cupid is able to do all that. So Madhu is saying that there are 33 million different demigods. For example, the demigod that's managing your eyelids. So that demigod that's managing your eyelids is managing the eyelids of every living entity. They're empowered. So Krishna gives them that empowerment. But they are not driven by the internal potency. They are governed by the external potency. The demigods who now deepen their relationship and become Krishna conscious, they are now driven by the internal potency in their service. So for example, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam Canto, Gopakumar, the journey of Gopakumar, the coward boy, he goes through practically all the different positions in material creation, right up to Lord Brahma. So Gopakumar even became Brahma because at one point there was no Brahma. So Gopakumar took the position of Brahma, and he's a pure devotee of the Lord. As a pure devotee who took the post of Brahma, he decided, okay, fantastic, I'm Brahma, right? So I can now decide how I want this creation, this universe to be ruled. And who he instated as the demigods? All pure devotees of the Lord as demigods. So he had the power, he could instate, and he instated demigods pure as devotee, and as devotees as devotee demigods. So he could do that. So like that, different. If a devotee is in the post as a demigod, then they are also now driven by the internal potency. But generally, demigods are circumbuctors. They have material desires. Krishna allows that, but they are very dutiful servants of the Lord. Right. Nonetheless says, thank you, Prabhu. Is it correct to say that the highest attainment in the material world to be in this world, but not of this world, i.e. on the transcendental platform in the material world, aloof in the mode of pure goodness? Yes, and you can take it a little further, because you can be in the mode of pure goodness, but not be a lover of Krishna. So the highest platform, highest attainment in this world is Jivan Mukta. To be in this world, to be in this body, but completely transcendental and situated in pure love for Krishna, a total lover of Krishna. That means, like Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada was in this world, interacting in this world, like one of us, but his consciousness, his heart was completely surrendered to Krishna. He was a pure lover of Krishna. So that is the highest attainment. That is what we are striving to do. We are not striving to achieve pure, at least the mode of goodness in its pure form. We're not even interested in trying to come to the level of pure goodness minus loving Krishna. So for example, the Brahma Jyoti, there's no modes of material nature. So the Brahma Jyoti is pure goodness, Suddha Sattva, but there is no love. So we are not interested in just being on the Suddha Sattva platform, transcendental goodness. We want to go beyond. That means pure lovers of Krishna. Krishna needs to be the focus. Our mind, body, words, heart, soul, everything for Krishna. Whatever we do, whatever we think, whatever we eat, whatever we offer, in whatever way we act, everything should be Krishnatized. Everything should be Krishna. It's like you want to become obsessed with Krishna. You know, it's like some in this material world, people become obsessed with different things, and everything needs to be related to that obsession. So we are obsessed with Krishna. We want to follow Srijit Mahaprabhu. Prabhupada said he's a madman, infatuated by Krishna. So we want to follow the greatest madman, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, become infatuated by Krishna. How? Everything that we interact with, everything that we want to do, in every action, in every thought, in every word, in every deed, it needs to be related to Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna. We want to do it for the pleasure of Krishna. This is the highest achievement that we can strive for in this world. If we achieve that, all your problems are resolved. If you achieve anything below that, there may still be problems lingering, even right up to merging with Brahman. There will be problems. So problem-free means becoming a pure love of Krishna. And it's not something that is foreign. We are pure lovers of Krishna. And because we are pure lovers of Krishna by nature, therefore it is our natural position to strive for that position. So next week, we will start hearing about such a pure lover of Krishna, Maharaj Parikshit. He had the good fortune of seeing Krishna right even before his birth in this material world. Bafana Prabhu says, Prabhupada encourages further by indicating that one should therefore not be astonished by 16,100 wives. On the contrary, one should affirm that even if the Lord married 16,000 million wives, he is not completely manifesting his unlimited and inexhaustible potency. He married only, in italics, 16,000 and entered in each and every different palace. This Prabhupada expresses was just to impress in the history of human beings on the surface of the earth that the Lord is never equal to or less than any human being, however powerful they may be. No one, therefore, is equal or greater than the Lord. The Lord is always great in all respects. God is great. He is the eternal truth. Yes. And Prabhupada would often make this statement when he's speaking to those in the Islamic tradition, when Prabhupada was giving talks in different parts where the Islamic tradition, because this is a statement that they hold, Allah, the great one. So when Prabhupada would say, Allah is the great one, and then Prabhupada would go further. It's nice that you know Allah is great. And Prabhupada would say, how great? See, and this is what Bhagavatam is teaching. Bhagavatam is not just teaching Krishna is great, Allah is great, but how great? Because when you understand how great, that is the only time when humility breathes. Like one wife, no problem. Half a dozen, ish. 16,100, wow. 16 million, beyond is like your brain explodes. The more you understand Krishna's greatness, it breeds humility of submission to surrender. That why wouldn't you surrender to someone so great as Krishna? And Prabhupada would use the example of Mahavishnu, that he's creating universes from his pores. This is how great Krishna is. Or Srila Bhakti Chirumaj would love to use the example, how great is Krishna? Just consider. He gave few examples I like to share. Few examples, how great Krishna is. Krishna is able to make an apple seed, and in that apple seed, there are apple trees. When you plant that seed, an apple tree comes out. And that apple tree has many fruits. And in those fruits, there are apple seeds. In each of those apple seeds, there's an apple tree. And in each of those apple trees, there are fruits. And in those fruits, there are seeds. And in those seeds, there are trees. And on those trees, there are fruits. Going to infinity. This is Krishna. Why wouldn't you want to surrender such a personality? This is Krishna. Just consider how great Krishna is, how intelligent Krishna is. You breathe out carbon dioxide, breathe in oxygen. Krishna made the trees to breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. Perfect harmony. Krishna gave an ocean of water and preserved it with salt. This is Krishna's greatness. But you need water. So what did Krishna do? Well, he creates the sun to evaporate the water. Then he creates the wind to disperse the clouds to all parts of the creation so that it rains. And that rainwater is pure water that you can drink. Krishna took the salt out through the process. This is Krishna. This is Krishna's greatness, Krishna's intelligence. Why wouldn't you surrender to such a personality? So Bhagavatam is revealing Krishna's greatness, his greatness in terms of achievements, his greatness in terms of reciprocation with loving devotees, his greatness in that whatever he does is blissful. This should be the impetus for us to surrender to Krishna completely in this lifetime. In this lifetime, this should be our aspiration. By Prabhupada's mercy, by the Acharya's mercy, by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, Lord Nityananda's mercy, this is achievable. Mother Les says, I like your example, Prabhu. Mahavishnu produces unlimited universes, and guess what? He does it in his sleep. How mind-boggling. Great. One worthy of surrender. Yes. While he's sleeping, he's doing it. So these episodes should be completely ingrained in our consciousness, and we should build upon it. If we do not build, then we cannot grow, and Krishna will not become sweeter and sweeter and sweeter, because there is more awaiting us than Mahavishnu's creation of the creation. Mahavishnu's creating the creation is simply for us as conditioned souls, but our attention is on the opposite side, beyond Mahavishnu, which the Bhagavatam is revealing, chapter by chapter, canto by canto, entering to the 10th canto, Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan. That is our residence, that is our home. So we're going to go through the creation, 3rd canto, 2nd canto. We're going to go through all the challenges of this material creation that's described, and ultimately go beyond to enter into the spiritual world. Thank you very much. We will end there. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Upramanande Hari Hari Bol.